Hello. So I'm back again. I'm back to talk about The Idol on HBO because, look, I usually plan my schedule pretty far ahead in advance, and I had this wedding video that I just published recently on the schedule for a while. And then I realized that The Idol also ended last weekend, no pun intended, because they had shortened the series from 6 episodes to 5 episodes. So we're just gonna have to up the frequency of the video posting. This show has had so much, I want to say mostly negative PR come out from it. And I'm trying not to repeat like too much of what everyone else has already said when it comes to the drama. But just as a reminder, a few months ago, Rolling Stone released this very, very salacious expose about what was going on set for The Idol, because originally The Idol was directed by Amy Seimetz, and then after about $54 to $75 million was spent doing 80% of the show, they decided to overhaul the entire show, scrap whatever she did, put Sam Levinson on the director seat, and redo the whole thing. And so Sam Levinson's series came out to be 5 episodes, and I know that some people were spreading these rumors that HBO just canceled the show, which is why we didn't get like a full 6 episodes. But no, it's apparently because Sam Levinson felt like he only needed 5 episodes to relay his vision. So if you don't know who Sam Levinson is, he also directed Euphoria, and Euphoria, despite its success, has also received a lot of criticism over the years. I've criticized Euphoria myself on this channel. And part of that is because he really employs the male gaze. He over-sexualizes the actresses that he works with. For example, Sydney Sweeney actually talked about in an interview with The Independent how she wanted to cut down the scenes of her topless because she felt like it was excessive. And it's crazy reading that interview because if you actually watch the show, she's topless for a lot of scenes. So the fact that there were even more scenes of her barely topless, I'm like, Sammy, what's going on? But anyway, yeah, like the show has just gotten a lot of criticism for the kinds of commentary that he's trying to put forward. For example, in Euphoria, there's also a character who is a high schooler and she's like doing cam girl work. And that's never really criticized or looked in any kind of disparaging or distasteful way. It's considered empowering. And as a viewer, you're kind of like, in this economy, what are you doing? So given Sam Levinson's track record, people really went into watching this show, I feel like, with a lot of cynicism, including myself. And, you know, I actually didn't watch it when everyone else watched it. I watched the first episode after the first 4 episodes had already aired because it was just like the way that my schedule worked out. And so I had heard all these testimonials from my friends and I saw the Rotten Tomatoes reviews and I was expecting the show to be really awful. And I have to say, I actually really liked the first episode. I thought it was really funny. It was just like as every episode progressed, the series got worse. And then by the 5th and final episode, it literally ended so terribly. I was actually shocked by how bad it was. But we'll backtrack. We'll get there when we get there. They had a really great star-studded cast. Like I thought Dan Levy in the first episode was really funny. I kind of wish he came back. He never did. But he had a lot of really great lines. Jane Addams has a lot of really great lines. Troye Sivan also impressed me. He surprised me because, well, one, I didn't actually know that his character was going to be that big of a character. So I was like, why is he still in this show? Like, I literally thought it was going to be a cameo. But then also his American accent was kind of fire. Like, I have seen so many piss poor accents in Hollywood, Netflix, whatever productions.
I've seen many strange things already. Bloody wolves chasing me through some blue inferno.
And so I feel like we really need to give Troy his props for that because I was watching it and I was like, oh, wow, he's American. He's straight up American. So I just want to recount the premise of the show, kind of talk about some of the major plot points that are important to understanding the full story, because I'm sure there's like a lot of you who are not planning to watch the show, but who want to know what has happened. So the story centers on Jocelyn, who is played by Lily Rose Depp. And Jocelyn's like this major pop star. She's supposed to be kind of like Britney Spears, Miley Cyrus adjacent in the sense that she is like super massive and she has like a lot of like young female fans.
So many young girls look up to you.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But she is also suffering with a lot of mental health issues, specifically like her mom's death. So her mom died of cancer off screen before the start of the show. She had a lot of like mental breakdowns about it, which has put her career on a pause. And now she's back. She's releasing a new album. She's doing like a reinvention. She's preparing for a tour, but her management is still very cautious because of all the things that happened.
I'm just worried she's having another psychotic break.
We also find out later that her mother was abusive, which adds like another layer to the story. Apparently her mom would beat her with a hairbrush, and Jocelyn also reveals later that that's how she was able to stay creatively motivated. You would think that given these circumstances, Jocelyn would actually be a very interesting character, but the unfortunate thing is she's not. Like, she's actually very one note. And I don't think this is Lily Rose Depp's fault at all. I actually think Lily Rose Depp is a pretty good actress. I just think they didn't give her any written material to work with. But she kind of just like doesn't have a real personality outside of like wanting to save her career and being in love with The Weeknd. But anyways, so the other characters in this cast include Tedros, who is played by The Weeknd. He is a club owner, talent manager, and cult leader. A triple threat, if you will, a modern day triple threat. His real name is also Mauricio Costello Jackson, which we find out later. I don't know why I added that in. You really don't need to know that at all. The thing about Tedros is that he's, I think, supposed to be very satirical. And The Weeknd even did an interview with GQ magazine where he says, "It got to a place where the only way I could play this role was if it's something completely different from who I am, and I can distance myself from that character. I wanted to make sure he looked nothing like me, acted nothing like me, just a totally different person." And so I think because of what The Weeknd was trying to do, which was to distance this character from himself, he was playing Tedros up to be very uncharismatic, very unlikable, very slimy, very gross. He like has a rat tail throughout the entire series, which other characters comment on. Like, they make fun of him for it. So it definitely was a purposeful choice.
My grandmother said you never trust a dude with a rat tail.
The problem is that a lot of people don't know what The Weeknd actually is like, because prior to all the drama that has come out from this show, he's lived a pretty like mysterious kind of life. There's like a mystique about The Weeknd. And so because people have no idea who he actually is, I feel like the end result is that when people watch this show, they're like, oh, gross, that's actually what The Weeknd is like. Because the line between the character and himself is really blurry in the sense that the character's name is Tedros and his last name is Tesfaye. And the character is like really hypersexual and kind of like gritty and dark, which kind of is the vibe that The Weeknd had, especially in his earlier work, like his The Hills era. It was very like sexual and dark and gritty. Also, the character was just not well written because the entire show just wasn't well written. Like, I saw this tweet earlier today that I'll read out to you. Written by Hannah, says, "So much of Levinson's work is aided by the heavy lifting of audiences who fill in narrative gaps and draw imagined conclusions that the creator himself didn't think of. LOL." And that's in response to someone dissecting an earlier scene from the TV series and seeing how that relates to the ending. Hannah then goes on to say, "I honestly noticed this with Euphoria last season as I was watching the show through my TL and saw how confused so many people were about certain aspects of the show only for a few random accounts to position a theory just for it to become assumed fact. LOL. I don't think this is a situation exclusive to Levinson's work, especially in the age of hyper fandom, but the material of better written shows are able to stand on their own despite the wild intellectual gymnastics made by fans. Levinson's work, however, is not. LOL." But back to The Weeknd. I think a major issue with Tedros is that The Weeknd is not a good actor. I mean, I'm willing to cut The Weeknd some slack, but I will say that this role is quite demanding for someone who's not like a trained actor, because in an interview, The Weeknd literally said Tedros is a psychopath. What does that mean to you? Like, what does that mean?
What does it mean? What does it mean?
To play a psychopath. Like, that's a very difficult character role. That is something that like an Oscar-winning actor would have trouble tackling. I also think that's probably why I liked the first episode so much, is because The Weeknd only gets introduced at the very end. So it was literally all great until we meet The Weeknd. The other characters include Xander, who is played by Troye Sivan. He is Jocelyn's childhood friend and also works for her as a creative director. Leia, who's played by Rachel Sennett. She's Jocelyn's best friend and live-in personal assistant. Hyman Destiny, played by Hank Azaria, and Davine Joy Randolph, respectively. They co-manage Jocelyn. Talia, who's played by Hari Neff, she's a writer for Vanity Fair, and is tasked to write a profile on Jocelyn during the course of the show. Diane is played by Jenny from Blackpink, who is Jocelyn's backup dancer. She's also a member of Tedros' cult and introduces Jocelyn to Tedros. Nikki Katz, who's played by Jane Addams, is a record label executive, and Andrew Finkelstein, played by Eli Roth, is a Live Nation representative. Rob Turner, played by Carl Glessman, is Jocelyn's actor ex-boyfriend, and the member of Tedros' cult include Isaac, played by Moses Sumney, and Chloe, played by Susanna Sun. The series starts off with Jocelyn getting her photos taken, and I actually thought this scene was like really funny. Like, it was clearly satire to me at this point in the show. She really wants to show her nipples, but her contract that she had signed previously says she can't show them. And there's like this intimacy coordinator on set, and he like refuses to let her do what she wants.
Your nudity writer, it's very strict. It is my body. Yes, yes it is.
And then her manager ends up like locking him in the bathroom or the closet or something.
There's a bathroom.
Yeah, it's a very big bathroom. Please.
What are you doing? I also think it was funny that during the course of the episode, she has had photos of herself with like cum on her face leaked onto the internet, and the way that they're talking about it is really funny.
That was a selfie? She took a picture? That was...
Yeah, you could tell by the angle.
So what?
He probably was fine as shit.
Who among us has not had cum on their face? Okay.
It's just like very clear the satirical nature of the show. And I really wish that it stuck to that. I really wish it stuck to like the pure comedy, the kind of like camp level of comedy. I think that would have worked better. The issue is that after a certain point, the show starts taking itself a little too seriously. Some of the major things that happen in the show are that Jocelyn and Tedros enter this kind of like psychosexual relationship. They have a lot of really disgusting sex. For example, there's like this one scene where Tedros is groping Jocelyn when she's recording a song, and everyone's just kind of like watching it happen. And it's really weird, but I'm also like, this would literally never happen, because why would anyone be okay witnessing this? Like, no one left the room. So remember how I said that Jocelyn's mom like beat her with a hairbrush? So there's a moment in episode 3 where she confesses to Tedros and everyone at the table that this was like what happened to her. She also confesses that she doesn't feel motivated anymore now that her mom is dead. And then Tedros decides to prescribe a session where he basically just goes to town with her with this hairbrush to, I guess, like reignite some creative spirit within her. That was like a scene where my jaw actually dropped, because I was like, this is actually so fucking audacious. Like, I cannot believe they wrote this scene in. And it also was just really weird the way that they shot. It was just like she was like kind of moaning, and then Troye Sivan was like crying in the background. You're gonna have to watch it yourself, or maybe don't watch it. I really wish I could have just like bleached that out of my eyeballs. Oh, and then there's also this like cult aspect of it, though I thought they were going to go deeper with the cult. Like, I literally thought it was going to be like a NXIVM type of storyline, but the cult stuff was very shallow. It was half-baked. I remember in the Rolling Stone article, the expose that I read, Amy Simons' original version was more focused on like the cult dynamics and the cult rituals. And there's supposed to be this induction ceremony for Jocelyn, but in Sam Levinson's version, they just didn't really commit themselves to the bit. The cult is more of like a background setting to the love story of Tedros and Jocelyn. Like, you don't really learn much about the other members of the cult. You never find out why they're all kind of sleeping in the basement of Jocelyn's house in sleeping bags when she has a massive house and they could definitely all have rooms in there. Actually, in the end of the show, they all get rewarded by being scouted by these like actual talent managers. So yeah, I feel like the messaging there is join a cult. You might be a big pop star at the end of it. I feel like the cultiest scene that they showed was in episode 4, Xander, Troye Sivan. He gets like tortured by Tedros. Tedros puts a shock collar on him, like one that you would use for dogs, and he keeps like zapping him. But then kind of like within the 24 hours after that happens, Xander becomes Tedros's crony and basically is fine living in the house with them and just like does Tedros's building. Like, he doesn't argue with him anymore.
Can we just talk alone?
No, Mitch's family.
Lay him down.
Josh can't save you.
And I feel like they were trying to give a sense that like, oh, Xander was brainwashed into becoming Tedros's puppet because of the torture. He developed Stockholm syndrome. But all this happened within the course of 24 hours. And after only like being shocked a few times within like a 15-minute time period, I feel like that's not enough to change someone's entire psychology and for them to be like indoctrinated into this cult. I don't know. I'm not like a psychiatrist. I don't know if that's true. It just didn't feel believable once again. Another plot point is that Diane gets offered one of Jocelyn's songs by Nicki because the record label has lost faith in Jocelyn and wants to make Diane the next big pop star. Diane then goes to Jocelyn's party and tells her this news because she was being nice and wanted to let her know in advance that this was happening and she wanted to get permission. But at the party, Jocelyn also finds out that Diane and Tedros might have been an item and decides that she's done with Tedros and calls her ex Rob, and Tedros is obviously super jealous. As Rob is leaving, he gets accosted by Xander, who has pledged his allegiance to Tedros, and he forcibly takes photos of Rob with one of Tedros's other cult members, Sophie, who's wearing a very revealing outfit, and it's implied that they're gonna do something with these very compromising photos.
Delete that photo, bro.
Also, Tedros has another henchman and whose name is Mitch. And throughout the series, they'll show like the back of his head or they'll like zoom into his face. And you're like, oh, this character is probably going to be more important than he actually is. But in the end, like he literally does nothing. Like he's literally just there. So in the last episode, the power dynamics have fully shifted. Jocelyn's now calling the shots. There's not really enough action or dialogue to explain this shift.
They can stay. You, on the other hand, can go.
And even though Jocelyn's no longer down for the relationship, it's poorly explained why Tedros is suddenly allowing her to do whatever she wants, because literally leading up to this last episode, he's been flexing his like alpha dog behavior. He's been on his Andrew Tate bullshit.
He's taking control of the house, like mentally.
Fucking curb stomp you. I'm sorry, I don't.
It just doesn't really make sense why he's suddenly become like this like little puppy dog who's like, Jocelyn, please pay attention to me, please. Rob is also framed for assault by Sophie because she and Xander shared the photos online.
I don't think Rob would do something like that.
You don't think people are capable of hiding what they really are?
And as Fletcher Peters wrote for the Daily Beast Obsessed, by including this false grape narrative, creator Sam Levinson has empowered all Hollywood power players who deny the allegations of victims. He has given power to abusers. Though Rob himself is not an abuser in the show, to say that this is a thing that happens, women falsely accusing men of grape for personal gain, is a nasty message for the idol to send. And Jocelyn and the other talented cult members put on a showcase for Nicki and Andrew to get approval for a new tour idea. Throughout the series, the executives and the managers, rather than showing us through like actions, these characters will just like have their own commentary that will tell us what's happening.
Noise, we sold out. She dropped 3 hit singles in 6 weeks.
During the showcase, the execs will like talk to themselves and they'll be like, oh my God, these people are so talented. These kids, where did they come from?
Soul of Prince. And these kids are signed. Not a one. How is that possible?
It doesn't feel organic or natural. Not to say that like Moses and Susanna are not very talented singers, but I feel like no executives actually say those things when they're scouting people. They weren't even scouting at that point. They were literally like forced to watch these people as part of like Jocelyn's show. As Peter writes, the music execs love these performers. They applaud Tedros. Sadly, he's not present for their admiration for finding such a talented bunch. I'm not too well versed in the music industry, but I can't imagine it's that hard to find a few good singers with nice bodies. It's the making them a star, creating hits, and maintaining a public image that's the hard part. The show itself has implemented this message through Diane's storyline. So why are they so in awe of Tedros, who simply made a cult while being completely talentless? So as this showcase is going on, Jocelyn tells Haim, her manager, to get rid of Tedros. So he calls Talia and she ends up publishing this whole expose on Tedros, publicizing how he's a cult leader and the times he went to prison for beating his girlfriend, his like nefarious past, etc. Then the executives, they are obsessed with the showcase, so they decide to sign all of them as part of Jocelyn's new tour idea. Then it goes to this like 6 weeks later situation. Once again, the managers are having their conversation, which basically is telling you exactly what has happened in the 6 weeks that were not shown.
The guy lost everything.
I mean, thank God.
Even his rat tail they took.
Then we see Tedros going up to the Sophie Stadium where Jocelyn is performing. When he goes backstage, he points out this hairbrush, the one that her mom allegedly beat her with.
Did you say this was the brush your mom beat you with? It's brand new.
Dun 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 dun. Her mom never beat her with the hairbrush. She was just making that up. She's manipulative. She's a terrible person, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, in my head, I'm like, he beat her with that same hairbrush. So wouldn't he know, like 3 episodes ago, that that was a brand new hairbrush? Also, like,
what man
knows how old a hairbrush looks? I'm sorry. Like, I feel like that's the last thing he would be thinking about when he sees that hairbrush. And then she introduces him on stage as the love of her life while her management looks on in horror, as does the rest of the audience. The rest of us, not the people in the audience, in the literal audience. So what was the point of the ending? Lily Rose Depp has said in an interview about the ending, I think a lot of the audience will watch maybe the first few episodes and think that this guy is taking advantage of her. By the end, he realizes that she knows exactly what he's doing and she knows exactly what she's doing. I understand why Sam Levinson and The Weeknd went for this, because they were like, oh, it's so unexpected because they're both fucked up and this is actually just like a up love story. For me, it's bad writing because it kind of just like washes over the fact that he is like a literal cult leader who recruited underage girls.
How old are you, Chloe?
18.
He was in jail for beating women.
He choked her.
He helped,
He tortured and manipulated the people in his cult. Ah! But yeah, all those things get like faded into the background because, oh no, it's actually Jocelyn who's the true villain after all. And also it just like doesn't make sense. It's not truthful to Jocelyn's character because the one thing that we know about her, despite all the bad writing for her, the one thing that is consistent is that she wants to save her career. She is super ambitious. She wants to make music that makes her legendary, etc. She cares about her career.
And I just feel like people are like waiting for me to fail and I just don't want to like prove them right.
It's shown that she was never a victim to begin with. You know, all of those things that signify an unhealthy dynamic of him taking advantage of her.
Do you trust me?
We're supposed to now interpret that as like empowering. Casper Salmon for the Daily Beast Obsessed says, but Levinson, and you know this, tries to have his cake and eat it by simultaneously subverting and being the dirt that his series calls out. How else to consider a female character barely seen before, who in episode 2 strips off for no particular reason and throws herself into a pool, filmed topless for the benefit of, presumably, a straight male audience? How else to explain Rachel Sennett's character suddenly being given a sex scene out of nowhere after Jocelyn finally gets down with her guru? How else to explain the constant objectifying of Jocelyn to an extent that is not supported by the show? In these scenes, which frame her with such insistence, what, if anything, is being subverted? Depp can almost never be filmed in anything other than a parodically skimpy outfit in this horrible, ugly show. At one point, she finally turns up in a t-shirt, which had the effect of a cold glass of water after trekking through a desert. Yeah, I mean, I like a lot of Jocelyn's outfits as standalones. Like, I think a lot of her looks were really nice. Also, my friend Shauna designed one of the dresses. But I think it's very telling that she only wears skimpy outfits. It kind of feels objectifying. Like, she really doesn't wear any kind of normal casual clothes, even when most of the show takes place in her house. The entire premise of the show is built on this very outdated understanding of the entertainment industry. Like I said, I feel like managers would not be foaming at the mouth when they hear someone who is a good singer. And likewise, I also don't think her record label would be pouring money into this like scanty character idea that Jocelyn has for her like reinvention, because that doesn't really sell anymore. Mikhail Wu wrote for LA Times, as digital streaming has chipped away at the power of music's established gatekeepers, labels have learned that hits can be made or found far more cheaply than in the days of lavish video shoots and high glam magazine covers. Me Too only further diminished the centrality of stars keyed to an old-fashioned male gaze. A lot of Jocelyn's dances, her songs, they were still like very disempowering, a male gazy kind of liberation. Whereas now, I feel like what people actually want is the song WAP. I feel like that's what sells, especially when you're a mega pop star, when record labels are going to be even more cautious about the kind of music and the kind of image you're releasing. My last comment about this is that the show was also just kind of boring. The majority of the show kind of takes place in a recording room. Like, you just see the artists working on it, like practicing their dances. You hear like clips and snippets of their songs, of their samples that they're going to show later at the end. In a movie, these sequences will be put together in a montage that lasts like 5 minutes. We get it. They're working on music. We don't really have to see it. I feel like it really dragged on throughout the series. And I actually think this show could have been just a movie instead of a TV show. Also, despite all the negative criticisms that's come out about this show, Randolph told MovieWeb that nothing is official. Like season two is not official, but HBO is quite happy. And she later added, I think a lot of season 1 was to set up the world that not many people know because it's very complicated. If anything, if we're going to make a season 2, I feel like it should be about Rachel Sennett because...
What are you doing? It's a party.
Yeah, I know, the wood is teak.
Her character, it reminded me a lot of like the White Lotus character. I forget her name. Portia. Okay. Leia reminded me a lot of Portia in the sense that she is like the outsider of this world and she's the only one with any common sense whatsoever. Actually, not to say that Portia had a lot of common sense. There were a lot of things that Portia did wrong in White Lotus. But I think in general, she's just sort of like has more perspective than everyone else in the show. If the show went a White Lotus route and made it really satirical, like a really funny and really more of like a clear commentary what they were doing, then that would have been great. Or it should have been more of like an ensemble cast like White Lotus where they focus equally on multiple characters involved and not just like focus on boring Jocelyn and disgusting Tedros, who are not interesting to watch on screen at all. Ugh, yeah. I would have loved to know what Amy Simons' version looked like. I would love to know what her reaction is to this show. And the way that it's panned out, I don't know if she will ever say, I don't know if she's like contractually allowed to say, or maybe she's just like not messy enough to say, whatever the case. I'm dying to know. I would have trusted her with the source material. That's all I have to say today. Once again, thank you so much for listening to me talk about things that don't really matter at all. And I'll see you next time. Have a lovely rest of your day. Bye.